MouseHunt. Welcome to Feedback Friday for February 7. Take 2 here. Had a few technical difficulties getting everything up and running and started, but seems to be good now. So knock on wood. Hopefully things remain that way. But I hit the button to start things up, and I don't know, things flickered a little bit, and then they disconnected. So I had to fire everything back up and give it a second try. Seems like we're in pretty good shape now, though. Good morning, everybody. There's 95 mouse hunters hanging out. Well, hello. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. There's a whole lot of people. Dallas, Saul, Peter, Draco, Chris, Lady Nutsy, Summer, YX, Crispy, Macum, JZ, Camel. Camel's trying to guess when Ronzo's going to arrive, hey? Rubber Soul, good mid-morning and happy Friday. Well, happy Friday to you as well. There's Jason. Nice to see you. KDM, Jericho, Sally, welcome on in. Michelle, a pleasure to see you. Good morning to you as well. It's probably afternoon in your neck of the woods, I'd imagine, Michelle, if time zones serve me right. My time zone knowledge is functioning in the AM here. Crispy, hello. Fleming, nice to see you. And good evening from Indonesia, says Nicholas. Well, welcome on in. Glad to have you. Today, I thought we'd touch base a little bit on the Lunar New Year event, the Lunar Lantern Event. See where was everybody hunting? How did you make out this year? You know, where were you having fun hunting the most? As well as a reminder that it will come to an end on February 11. So that is next week. That's next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. So a few days left to go. One more weekend to be using your lantern to get double or triple loot drops as well. A good reminder to keep in mind here, when the event ends, that really is kind of the end of the event. Other events kind of have a bit of a shutdown phase where there's still a little bit something you can do, you know, kind of finish up one last run, that sort of thing. But the Lantern event can kind of very safely just sort of come to an end. There's not as much confusion around how to get things to come to a close. And on February 11, it really is kind of the event is over. You know, the red banners on the side of the game will be gone. You won't be able to collect dumpling cheese. If you arm your dumpling cheese, it'll fail to attract mice. You can't get any more event mice. You can't use your lantern, so you can't be burning candles for the luck or the loot bonuses. That said, the only thing is there's 1 week grace period where the general store, it will still have the journal themes from previous years, and the dirigible cosmetics, all that stuff will still be around in the shops if you need to pick that up. The jade base as well and be in the trapsmith. So it's kind of a 1 week grace period. You'll also be able to claim any unclaimed things on your reward track. You know, just in case timing works out that way, where you wake up in the morning and it was a trap check that kind of puts you at that right height, or just you didn't get back in time to click the button. Well, you have kind of 1 week to claim everything before it's really done and over with entirely. Michelle saying a shameless birthday plug for the London birthday meet in March. I just combined the word London and birthday into Lunday. Yeah. Looks like a lot of fun. Thanks for sharing the link, Michelle. Speaking of the meetup, Dave, are you also planning to attend? I don't know. We'll see. I think we're chatting it over with the team a little bit. Russ, welcome on in. Good morning to you as well. Fleming's looking forward to the get-together. It's Brian and Kelly. All right. Well, there you go. A word from Michelle herself. Brian and Kelly will be there. Something we often do with events as well, it's nice to kind of write down feedback, suggestions, and what have you. That makes me think here too is YX asking if we'd consider allowing hunters to exchange excess candles for red candles and be a little bit more flexibility. You know, we kind of think it over. We go back and forth a little bit, but you know, I think the balance is in a pretty good spot where it kind of allows us to have a good economy of the white candles while still being able to balance the red candles as something special and kind of above and beyond. And red candles are unique in a way where you can do a lot with just a few of them. And so it's a good fit on the reward track and the adventure reward. You can get a few red candles, and if you use them strategically, they can go quite a long way. And then you sort of shift down into white candle mode when you're doing your more lengthy runs. If say you're hunting Fulmina, you know, you can use your white candles and sustain that for a long time. But if you're hunting something like, say, the And 1000 mouse was like, well, you know, all I need is like maybe 12 candles or so, depending on how much cheese you have. I'm going to do a quick run with red candles, but then it's kind of a short, exciting, brief moment, and then you kind of shift down and kind of creates those highs and those lows. Jay said, asking, how many hearts were dropped during the event? You know, that I don't have off the top of my head. That was a fairly popular area. Let's see. I got to sign into something, though. We'll see what area was most popular during Lunar New Year. Maybe I don't need to sign in. Hey, look at that. So when did the event start? Was on January 28th. So let's take a look. We are going to go to January 29 up until yesterday. Why not? So from January 29 up until yesterday, the most popular area. Do we have any guesses? Can anyone in the chat want to try and guess what maybe what the most popular area? And it is by, let's do some math, 1.6%. Yes, I think I did my math right there. It was not the Draconic Depths. You might have to just kind of think about how the event works a little bit to get a sense of where do you think most players took at least one hunt. Didn't mean there weren't the most hunts taken there, but where most hunters took at least one hunt. This would have been a good trivia question, actually. It is not the Draconic Depths. It is not the Floating Islands. Hey, I think Jason was the first person I saw get it right in the chat. It is indeed Queso River, which makes sense. That's a pretty good stockpile location. You can be pumping some queso at the same time as well. But 19.3% of players since the start of the event have taken at least one hunt in Queso River. Number 2 was Ford Farm with 17.7. That looks like another popular stockpile location. The Bountiful Beanstalk. Over 15% of players hunted there. Floating Islands was number 4 with 13.7. So it seems like the stockpile locations had a bit of a leg up there. And number 5, Draconic Depths. 12.3% of players have taken at least one hunt in the Draconic Depths this event. Now that said, where were the most hunts taken? Let's see. Draconic Depths is leading the way. Of those players who are hunting in the Draconic Depths, on average, they were taking 45 hunts a day in the Draconic Depths. The Beanstalk was a close second with 44 hunts a day in the Beanstalk as well. So those were definitely, I think, some popular areas to be hunting a lot in. But the stockpile locations were quite popular as well. People stockpiling some dumpling, getting their candles, getting set up to take elsewhere. Chris asking what place was the least popular. Hey, let's see. There's probably going to be a multi-way tie if I had to guess. But let's see technically. Would you believe it? All right. If I scroll all the way to the bottom of the list, there are some areas that 0 hunters have taken a hunt since the start of the event. There's some shockers here, okay? Right at the bottom of the list is Ron's Traveling Shop. No one hunted there. It's hard to believe. The Super Brie Factory, the Festive Comet, the Gloomy Greenwood, the Ice Fortress, the Golem Workshop, the Cinnamon Hill. Okay, now we have a real one, the King's Arms. And it looks like a rounding error. It says 0%, but there were some hunts taken there. So it has to be less than 0.1% of players did any hunting in the King's Arms, but those hunters who were there did 8.6 hunts per day. Town and Digby is the second least popular spot to be hunting since the start of the event, with only 0.1% of players stepped foot into Digby since the start of the event. Andres, you think the Queso River is popular due to the Queso Cannon Storm base? That might be a pretty good guess. Andrew didn't have any luck hunting for heart. It is definitely a challenge, and we know it's a bit polarizing. We've been keeping, our ear to the ground, close feedback when it comes to the Draconic Depths and heart, and it is obviously a bit of a polarizing topic. It's kind of either you like it or you don't like it type of thing. But even though if we can take another item as a bit of a case study or an example, I guess, or if that's a better term for it. Let's take Sandblasted Metal. That's one of the original kind of rare drops in the game, and you need 2 of them to make the Sandstorm Monster Bot. And certainly at the time, it was quite a difficult rare item that had a lot of kind of commentary around it, and it kind of stirred up a lot of discussions around sandblasted metal. But then as time goes on with items like that, something we found that works well as the years go by is adding new ways to obtain that item. So, sandblasted metal, maybe maps come out and it becomes a potential reward from doing different types of treasure maps. Certainly event season is a very popular way that we use events as a way of finding new sources for some of those kind of rare tradable items. And things like, say, Fulmina can drop sandblasted metal, I'm fairly sure, right? And so kind of slowly we add kind of alternative ways of getting that item, especially as more stuff starts to become after that point, where it becomes a little bit more expected that you're going to upgrade your gear to that level because there's places to then go forward and actually start using it. Whereas right when it first comes out, sometimes there aren't a lot of actual practical applications for it. It's kind of a little bit above and beyond. You're trying to get the absolute sort of best thing, the cutting edge right at the time. But when you get it, often you just then use it in the same area to do the same thing you were doing to earn it. And so, as more areas come after that, often we start to add a few alternative paths. And like I said, event season is definitely something that we use in that regard. When we kind of brainstorming a little bit for the spring egg hunt, the birthday is a good time to stock up on some cheese. The winter hunt is another great time to stock up on all sorts of supplies, and it kind of makes everybody's journey to that outcome a little bit different. But certainly we understand it can be a bit polarizing because it is kind of a marketplace driven thing. You have to kind of like the marketplace to be really into that sort of thing, and for it to be fun on the marketplace, it means there needs to be demand for it, and that does kind of present a little bit of a conflict. Well, for there to be demand for something, that means there has to be people who are looking to acquire it. So it's a little bit polarizing for sure, but we've been keeping our ear to the ground a little bit, and rest assured we continually discuss that stuff as well, and kind of aim to refine those reward structures each time and find creative solutions as we add new things. Ashley went to Digby trying for the Big Bad Burrows mouse for an M1000 map, eh? Were there any hunts in the King's Stockade, asks Saul, where we're looking at all these stats. The King's Stockade is not an actual area. I think when somebody does get put in the stockade, we just replace the name. So you can't actually hunt there. And I don't think you'd be allowed to hunt there either. We'll see. Summer's still hoping for a rib. Dallas didn't get any hearts. Grant asking if the opal base will be a requirement for the next base, seeing how rare the hearts are. That's a good example. When the time comes, should there be another upgrade for that base, that's when, it becomes a little bit more expected, like, okay, you're going to be kind of expected to be having something of this tier moving forward. And so it kind of gives that runway for more reward structures for future areas and future events, that there could be alternative paths to acquiring either the heart or the base. But again, it's all a work in progress, and I just speak from the history of how those types of items typically work. Is as time goes by, they become new sources for it, or they don't become quite as rare as they once were. And like I said, if we go back and we look at sandblasted metal, I think today a lot of hunters wouldn't think it's a particularly rare or especially difficult item to go and get your hands on. But when it came out, that it was the exact opposite. It was extremely difficult to get your hands on. It's just kind of natural how things play out as we add more content that comes after that content. And as more hunters kind of start selling excess, it just kind of naturally increases demand and supply begins to drop. And then, everything kind of has its time in the sun that way. Allison asking about the egg hunt already. Well, I'll tell you what, it might be a little too early to get into too many details of the egg hunt. We have started to put together the egg hunt, though. We itemized a list of eggs, and there will be some eggs in the Draconic Depths, but we can probably go into a little bit more detail at a future Feedback Friday as we get a little bit closer. But for now, we'll wrap up getting feedback on the Lunar New Year event. We always like to record a lot of feedback. We log it for next year. One of the first things we do, it'll probably be September, October next year. We'll be loading up that feedback, reading through it, and starting to itemize what we want to do with Lunar New Year 2026. Maki asking how much runny cheese is in the game. I'd imagine more than you'd expect. Well, we'll see. Rubber Soul, fingers crossed they go in the eggs. And we are kind of workshopping, how eggs might work in the Draconic Depths, especially when it comes to the emperor egg a little bit. We're kind of play testing a little bit, a few different creative ideas, but a little too early to go into detail, so stay tuned. George, hello, welcome on in, asking, are you in time for trivia? We'll be getting there, yeah. We got a couple other topics to touch base on. We normally wrap up with trivia. But right now, getting some feedback on Lunar New Year, a few notes and what have you to log for next year. Seeing where everybody was hunting, what the most popular areas were. And then I do want to touch base on the birthday event as well. With Lunar New Year soon to come to a close, well, what's next up is MouseHunt's 17th birthday event. And that might be as good of a segue as any to shift gears and talk a little bit about the upcoming birthday event. The Super Brie Factory will be returning on March 4. It'll be a 2-week event where you can collect a wide variety of cheese, including cheese from the School of Sorcery and the Draconic Depths, those being new areas. The Bountiful Beans, that snack pack is being replaced with a new delicious sounding snack. The vending machine is getting something I don't think the likes of which the world has never seen, and it is Fantasy Fizz, and it's carbonated cheese beverage now with chunks, right? There's cheese in there, so there's got to be a few chunks in that carbonated cheese beverage, Fantasy Fizz, and it's going to cover more areas. So that's going to be replacing the Bountiful Bean snack pack. And it'll cover a wider variety of folklore forest areas, and that'll be have the addition of adding some cheese from the Draconic Depths, including Emmental should be in there, barring some change of plan, but thinking that seems pretty safe bet that it's looking pretty good to have Emmental in there. As well as we're adding a new cheesy pipe party mini game. So slowly there's definitely a lot of popularity around the different mini games you can play from events, whether it's the Snowball Showdown during the Great Winter Hunt, Egg Sweeper during the Spring Egg Hunt. Now the birthday is seeing the addition of a new mini game as well called the Cheesy Pipe Party. You'll be getting some wrenches, fixing up some pipes, reconfiguring them, realigning them, rotating them, running the pump to earn even more cheese. So there'll be lots of different ways to be earning all sorts of cheese. The main Super Brie factory, when we get that pump up and running, it's a great time to earn quite a bit of Super Brie. It's part of the identity event. It's a great time to be getting Super Brie. The vending machine will be there where you can use your Super Tokens Plus to pick snack packs and kind of have a little bit of agency over what type of cheese you want for what kind of region and what kind of category or grouping of areas. And now the Cheesy Pipe Party minigame as well. The identity of the birthday event, it's all about earning cheese. There'll be lots of cheese to be found on that board as well. Every time you solve a board, you'll be able to claim some various varieties of cheese. Is the octopus going to be an event? Asks FRV. I think that was maybe as I get caught up on chat a bit. That was Bubbles. That's Bubbles. Bubbles is on the map right now. Bubbles is on the map right now. Schoolwork is surprised that candle duplication wasn't limited for the kilohertz processors. That is a very good use of candles, and it is kind of something that comes to mind. Not to go back and forth too much to talk about Lunar New Year more, but that's good feedback for Lunar New Year. And we think about it quite a bit. Even when the floating islands came out, there's a lot of loot multipliers. The beanstalk as well. Is it a little too good? But the fact that the event is kind of short and sweet, I think it just kind of works. And in some ways, it's just more fun to know, wow, I can use this bonus in so many different unique ways. I don't know, it's fun. And at the end of the day, there's a smile on the face, so something must be working, right? I know I used it as an opportunity to use up what 1000th draft derby I had. I went and I made sure I tripled all my processor drops. That was something I was saving red candles for. So I think it worked out. It was pretty fun. Rubber Soul like the Fantasy Fizz. It's the first beverage going into the vending machine. There's lots of snacks in there, but it is the first beverage. And I'm going to say it's the world's first carbonated cheese beverage. So I don't know. I'd be excited to try that. Not really. So I was looking forward to another MouseHunt birthday, another year of fun in this game. Yep, Slick Sauce. I don't know. Yeah, you don't think carbonated cheese beverage sounds good? We'll see. We'll see. Schoolwork, opals for a heart. And there are some areas that work that way, and hopefully you can appreciate that. Like say the Sunken City, sand dollars in the processor, but there's still, even still, some people talk about, I want my processor from Tritus. So I think there's just something fun about when it comes from that source. But again, I know it's a bit polarizing because the kind of backup way is the marketplace. So it does kind of come down to people who have fun with the marketplace. But we know it's can be a little polarizing. It's not a majority of players, and that's why there's so few areas in the game like that. So it's kind of tailored for a smaller subset of players. Maybe 1 in 5 players really kind of like that type of thing, and that's why there's only really like 3 or so areas in the whole game that work like that. Where there's dozens of other areas that work differently. So, hopefully you can kind of appreciate it's a way to make sure there's something there for everybody. And, if there's like an area that you really enjoy that you think is great, there's some other hunters out there who wish it was different. So it's tricky, but at the same time, it's one of the beauties or beautiful aspects of the game is with the wide variety of areas, it can kind of appeal to a lot of different people. The Pipe Dream game, Hank, that takes me back a ways. I remember playing Pipe Dream as well. I think I rented that. I think I remember renting that from the Blockbuster video. Yeah, so that was probably a few years ago. So you remember the Bubbles Trap? I always like the Kraken Chaos as well. That sticks out as one of the first traps that played around with kind of negative space in the base. Your base turned into a little hot tub, and Kraken was chilling out in there. Yeah, William, you think a pity mechanic is a must, and that's it's fair. We definitely we're reading a lot of a large group of players agree as well, and there's some players who prefer it the other way, and it is a bit of a dilemma of which group of players do you gravitate towards and do different style of areas for, and hopefully you can appreciate that's why there's so few areas like that. And like I was saying at the top, in case you missed it as well, is part of any area that has that kind of rare valuable item, it isn't so much that the alternative way of getting the item is in the area right from day one. It's kind of a work in progress. I was using sandblasted metal as a little bit of an example of when it first came out, you had to get it from the Warmonger, but then there were maps that came out, then Fulmina arrived, then there were different types of events as the years went by, even the Rib as well. The Queso Cannon Storm Base added a new source of the Rib, Grand Tour maps. I think I have a rare chance of that Rib as well. Certainly events came around that added new sources and new chances, new different varying paths to obtain that. So it's on the way, it'll get there, and it's just a different style of area where it's not quite a one and done. It's sort of something that gets built upon over the course of years and not even weeks and months, but it is just one of those few areas that I think a lot of players like, that there is something just so intense, exciting, and relevant for such a long period of time. But for that to work, there has to only be very, very few of those areas as well. So it all kind of comes together in that sense. JZ asking, can you elaborate on the timeline for an area for this year, any roadmap? We are just in the process of firming that up a little bit. So we're still kind of just scoping. We don't quite know how long it's going to take to make quite yet, but we're getting a little closer to being able to answer that question, but it's still a work in progress. Fleming, you're saying we have to open that more carefully since it drops in the vending machine. Yeah, sometimes I wonder how they do that, and kind of, and you get your soda, your pop from the vending machine there, it has to drop. You always have to be a little more careful opening those, and I'm always surprised they don't completely explode. Just a mist of carbonated cheese will fill the air. Christopher Lee asking if the last day in events can we have a countdown in hours letting us know when the time zone cutoff is. You miscalculated, the Great Winter Hunt ended, and doing little stuff last minute. It should switch over. I mean, unless there's a problem or an error with it, and that would be something good to jot down for next year to make sure that gets fixed up. But I think in the final 24 hours, that timer should change from days to hours. But hey, that's maybe something good to jot down. Maybe that needs to happen 48 hours ahead, because otherwise it's going to say 1 day and that's going to switch to 24. So if you kind of go to sleep and it says 1 day, you might wake up and it says 3 hours. By the time you wake up, you run some errands, you didn't play, you didn't check on camp right away that day. It might seem like, whoa, hold on, I thought I had a whole day. That doesn't seem like a whole day. So, that might be something good to jot down. Firming up the roadmap because it's currently liquid. Yeah, we're getting there. We're a wee bit behind schedule, and we're just kind of getting caught up a little bit. And it's just some of the challenges of being a small team. There's a lot to do, and there's not quite enough of us to get it all done. But we definitely try our best, and we're getting caught up a little bit. And sometimes we just need to shift our plan a little bit depending on what's going on. Silro, you think at the end of the day, it's the marketplace price of the hearts that are making players unhappy. Rib Sandblast Mail, when they're first released, you don't think their prices stabilize quite that high. And I mean, there is a little bit of, inflation. As the years go by, the value of gold just changes as well. So, not everything remains a constant. But, it was up there, and it's something we keep an eye on as well. It's something very hard to predict when an area first releases, sort of, you got to gauge interest and, what hunter strategies are going to be. And so, that's what I said. It's not kind of a done deal. It's not that there won't be any, updates that would involve the heart ever again. In fact, quite the opposite. Usually with those rare items, it is something that provides a little bit of reward space for future events and future updates. Whether there are other areas in the folklore forest that would come together, especially should you ever need to upgrade and need to upgrade the base, it would kind of make sense to tie in alternative ways of obtaining that item. So, it is just, it's a big game of patience, I guess. It's one of those areas where, it's a bit of a work in progress, or the story keeps playing out, and the story changes a little bit as time goes by. Right upon release and the months to follow, it's something exceptionally rare, sought after, and it's kind of considered really above and beyond, to the point where there isn't really even a use for it once you obtain it going forward. But as that changes and we add more areas, then it sort of shifts things a little bit, and naturally as supply increases and demand, it decreases a little bit as well. Then the price drops as well. Peter's saying, do people really not check MouseHunt as soon as they wake up? It happens. You have those busy days, right? Maybe you sleep in a little bit, you roll over, you're like, whoa, look at the time, and you get going right away. JZ saying the opposite here, thinking that the Devastator multi-cannon doesn't have a significant stat jump. In some ways that's a little bit intentional as well. It is kind of above and beyond, meaning, you're not missing out on too many catches should you not have it. It is kind of a nice to have, but not a must have. And it kind of fits the bill of it being such a rare and difficult to acquire item, at least for the time being. Harry asking, will Big Jack be coming back this year? You want to refill the leaves? Don't hold me to this, and I shouldn't say anything because it'll typically be quoted, but the plan is to hopefully have Big Jack back. But that said, I think right now we have 3 different versions of the roadmap for the year. And I do realize that February is nearly half over and the roadmap isn't quite solidified, but we're doing our best. We do have a few different variants of the roadmap, and one of them does have Big Jack on it, and 2 of them do not. And it kind of comes down to seeing how a few things come together. And actually, we're at a kind of a critical moment here. I think by March, we'll be wrapping up a little bit of work, doing some R&D, finishing up a little design work where we'll be able to scope those things out and see how much work everything is to know, okay, how much can we fit in for the remainder of the year? In some ways, that's nice. The event season at the start takes a little bit of the pressure off us because we know what we're doing. It's already scoped out a little bit. We understand how long things take to build when it comes to the events that we've ran in the past. So, in some ways, that's a blessing for us to free up some time to be working on, what comes after events. Yeah, Sour Mash, you like when the heart price is high because it's exciting when you loot. And, and I think that is some of the sentiment of the players who enjoy kind of rare drops and jackpots. That has definitely a lot to do with it as well. It's a very exciting but very difficult moment to make happen. But that said, with a little bit of patience, even if that's not your cup of tea, as the months and the years roll by, that scenario changes, you know, like nothing in the game is static. It's a very much a living game, and it changes with each and every update, especially as we add episodic content and adventures, and we go through each event season as well. Is the skin for the Chrome Dragon Slayer cannon going to be a premium skin? I don't think I know which skin you're speaking of, Andrish. Yeah, geez, did you kind of like the rare drops as well? Yeah, I think it is probably a lower portion of players who really like it and who don't care for it as well. So, you know, and no, we're aware of that as well. That's why we keep so few areas working quite in that light. But it's just kind of a, you know, a little something for the players who like that type of thing. So looking forward to more ways to obtain that. That's a good feedback question. You know, would you like to see more ways of obtaining the heart? I mean, that's kind of in the back of our mind. We know that's reward space that we can utilize, whether it's through events, updates, you know, treasure map updates. You know, it's one more sort of variable we have in the mix. Fleming already quoting me on Big Jack moments ago. It's not impossible. You know, I don't know. It's not a certainty, but you know, there is one timeline that we fleshed out that has Big Jack coming back, even with some updates to Big Jack. You know, maybe Big Jack needs a companion as well, a sidekick or a partner, or you know, I don't know else how to phrase it. Another business entrepreneur in a parallel industry that they could maybe arrive at the same time and show up and both open up their shops. But too early of days. It's just an idea, far from a vision. Summer says Big Jack hasn't been here since you started playing, came back right after she left last time. That would be exciting. Good to know, and good to see there's excitement for Big Jack. She kind of has a bit of an interesting event. If you're well past the point of hunting a lot at Queso Canyon, where maybe you don't have any particular goals in the Queso Canyon, then you can kind of show up, visit, maybe you got some leaves from some events or some other sources, what have you, and you can do a little bit of a trade up and an exchange. And then you can kind of go back to your business, right? It's kind of, she shows up, you visit her shop, and then you leave. It's just like going to you're running an errand. You know, you're popping into the store to pick up a few things. But if you're more central to that part of the game, and you still have a lot of goals there as well, you can stick around and you can collect the queso barrels and get a little extra bland queso and get some more leaves to then exchange them if you like. You're speaking about the beautiful skin featured on the background. Anders was the first to realize that there might be a trap skin below and around me. We'll leave it a surprise what that is a trap skin for and how it may be obtained. But there are a few skins coming with the birthday event on March 4 as well. Well, what time is it? We're sitting here at 11:37 in my neck of the woods, and we've been going for 35 minutes. Had some technical difficulty getting started. Do you think it's time for trivia? I already forget the hunter who popped in and immediately asked, did I miss the trivia? If you're still there, I apologize. I forget who asked it, but here's the trivia. We'll get to the trivia. A lot of guesses it's a Dragon Slayer cannon skin. I don't know. No, it's a pretty good guess. That's a pretty good guess. Today's trivia question, or this week's trivia question, and lo and behold, this time I remembered to hide the answer. Last time I did not. Which Lunar New Year costume is so realistic and lifelike, there was trouble finding a mouse brave enough to put it on? In other words, who's been reading mouse descriptions? Are you reading those mouse descriptions? That didn't take long at all. I think the very first guess was correct. Xanther guessed snake, and that is indeed correct. It is the snake mouse. That's not how I reveal the answer. That's just hiding the word trivia. That's not, whoa, what's going on here? I don't know how to use computers. All right. It is the costume snake. And that is straight from the description of the costume snake. I'll put this link in the chat for easier clicking. Schoolwork saying maybe make a cavern that costs lots of opals per hunt to reinforce, has a new mouse with a higher heart drop rate to increase the drops per hunt. You know, that's an interesting idea. I mean, stuff like that. And another example is the floating islands, right? The Sky Palace came along, and it kind of just changes the way that story works a little bit. And you know, a lot of areas work that way, right? Where it's always kind of a bit of a work in progress, or there's sequels, right? Just because there's a way to obtain an item today doesn't mean tomorrow it'll be the same way. And you know, in a lot of ways, that's the fun of the game as well. It's a world that's constantly evolving and changing, and it's always new, fresh. There's new challenges to take on. You got to shift your strategy a little bit based on how the world is updating around you. 3 times red lunar lantern candles. Yes, that's what Larry has at the reward link. There are some red candles. A little bit of a restock. Jericho, I'm going to use these candles responsibly. I'm in the Twisted Garden. That's how I'm wrapping up my Lunar New Year. I visited the Draconic Depths. I used up all of my 1000th draft Derby cheese as well to get triple processor drops. And then I usually end Lunar New Year in the Twisted Garden to keep stockpiling some living chests. I'm looking forward to the Halloween event. I need more ultimate potions. I think I need about another 300 of them or so, but we're getting there. Might have enough essence to make about 650 ultimate charms by the time I open up all these chests. Yeah, YX already works that way. Are we talking about the timer? Yeah, we'll double check. I don't know. The timer should switch over in Lunar New Year. It should switch from days to hours when it hits 24 hours. But, you know, I'll bring that up with the team. And I got to think on that a little bit more. But I wonder if it might make sense to make that switch to hours a little sooner. Does anyone find it confusing if you say 48 hours instead of 2 days? Or would you say that's kind of muscle memory? I don't know if that's quite the right term for that, but it's just ubiquitous knowledge that, yeah, 48 hours is 2 days. You know, if I say 60 minutes instead of an hour, is that confusing? If I say 48 hours instead of 2 days, is that confusing? I'm sure there's a limit to how many days before it starts to be confusing. We open up a calculator. Listen, it's 168 hours, okay? That's a week. No, just say a week. Don't say 168 hours. But is 48 hours, is that confusing? Soul thinks 48 hours is pretty easy to know what's going on. 48 muscle memory. I don't know, muscle memory isn't quite the right word there, but rolls off the tongue. Intuitive. You think it becomes more relevant when it gets to 36 hours, okay. The urgency of it changes if it becomes hours. Crispy, that's a very good observation as well, actually. That's kind of interesting to think about. So much of an interface in a game is not so much how it works, but how does it make the person feel who's using it, you know, and that's something good to keep in mind. When you see days, it just feels like you have a lot more time than if it says hours. So, you know, that's a pretty good observation. That's very astute. Dallas thinks switching up 48 might be good. Maybe we meet in the middle and make it 36. We'll see. Put the limit at 72 hours for 3 days, says Gerald. Going a little higher. 36 is a good middle ground, says Jordo. Depends on where you live, you guess, eh? It can be, I can see some confusion with time zones. You know, if the event is going to end in 24 hours and 30 minutes, and you check the game right before bed and it says 1 day, or it'll say 2 days, sorry, because it's rounding up. It's going to say 2 days. And like, oh, I got forever. Then you go to sleep, you wake up the next day, and it says 16 hours. Like, what happened? How did it go from 2 days to 16 hours in the blink of an eye? I gotta get the let out here. Nid saying 35. That is an unacceptable suggestion, Nid. But yeah, it does stress a sense of urgency. So, you know, when do you feel, this is maybe a good feedback question as well, because it's very subjective, but when an event is coming to an end, and maybe we say when Lunar New Year is coming to an end, because I'd imagine every event feels a little different. At what point Lunar New Year do you feel like it's almost over? Like, if you've been putting off something, say you lined up a Minotaur catch, right? And you're like, yeah, I've been meaning to catch the Minotaur with a red candle. At what point do you start to panic, like, I better go do that, or I might forget, or I might run out of time to go and do that? Or, you know, maybe you have some 1000th draft derby, you want to go get triple processors, and you're like, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. At what point do you realize the procrastination needs to stop, and I better get it done before it's too late? 35 hours, 37 minutes, and 5 seconds. Thank you, Saul. Yeah, I'll set it or exactly to that. It'll be a fun Easter egg. 1,700... 2,800 seconds remaining. Yep, Fleming, that sounds very easy to parse as well. Yeah, events generally end on a Tuesday. It should switch to hours on the weekend. Okay, that's another interesting way to kind of think about that as well, right? Well, they do typically end on a Tuesday. If it switched over on a Sunday evening, you know, if it was set to 36 hours, I'm trying to, time is very confusing to think about sometimes. But that might help Sunday night. It kind of kicks in and you're like, oh, right, it's ending. This was the last weekend. It's coming up. Trevor says 2 days. Sora says 2 days when you start to feel the stress. I don't know if that's quite the right word. Urgency. That's a more positive emotion than stress. Start to feel the sense of urgency that the event's coming to an end. Rubber Soul says that you only really feel that sense of urgency during the final 24 hours. Why not just put both? That's fair too, Edison. That's fair as well. There's a little limited space, you know. It might get a little cluttered, but that's another option as well. You know, we could have it say hours, or days and hours. You know, at 48 hours, it switches and says 1 day, 13 hours remaining, that sort of thing, right? And then when you get under 24, then the hours go away, or the days go away, and it just starts to say hours. That's a pretty good idea too. I think we have some good food for thought to jot down. Maybe even for the spring egg hunt. That's probably a little too late for the birthday. We're testing out the birthday, so the timer functionality is probably kind of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of mode. As soon as we reach a certain point of testing, we just want to fix what's broken, not change what's already working. But Mom is already stressed. You'd say 48 hours is crunch time. There you go. That's another good way of phrasing it. All right, when is it crunch time? Well, you got to get these goals done. I'd like to discuss more units of time. Every month should be 30 days and the remaining 5 days should be freebies, eh? "45 minutes, says Michelle. Well, that might be a cue that we're running a little bit long. Might be time to wrap up. Yep, noon is just around the corner here. I actually do have quite a few things I wanted to get done this afternoon. Something tells me I'm going to be doing some of them come Monday, though. I think the to-do list is longer than is feasibly possible to wrap up in an afternoon, but we'll see how it goes. Brian, is the MH team hiring new web developers? Potentially, yeah. If you're in the Southern Ontario area, that might be a possibility. Convert the timer to max hunts last 5 to the hour. That's kind of a fun idea as well. I think that might be a little bit confusing, but that is an interesting sort of like power user feature. Like, how many possible hunts do I have left? Because you know, if you have more candles than that, I'm good. I'm just going to use candles. I don't need to collect anymore. All right, I should wrap things up though, hunters. Thank you for joining me this week. Again, touch base on Lunar New Year. Keep the feedback coming. As always, we keep our ear to the ground and we jot everything down, and we're always discussing everything. And we like to discuss things, have a meeting on a lot of topics as well, right? So, rest assured, feedback is heard, although it might not be something we act upon right away. We don't want to be too reactionary. We want to kind of think about things from every angle, but we're always keeping our ear to the ground on different forms of feedback, and it plays into every event we do, every area that we roll out. I like to think over the course of 17 years, every time we release something, everything we learn in that release, we roll into the next one a little bit, kind of hone the craft a little bit. So, keep the feedback coming on Lunar New Year. There's already been a lot of cool insights just on Feedback Friday here. We tuck away notes and we'll be pulling those out, at the end of this year as we prepare Lunar New Year 2026. Then after February 11, when the Lunar New Year event, the Lunar Lantern event comes to an end, you can look forward to the Super Brie Factory making a return on March 4 with some delicious carbonated cheese beverage, Fantasy Fizz. The new Cheesy Pipe Party minigame will be arriving. And last but not least, we did touch base on trivia. Just in case you didn't see that reward link, there's a few red candles waiting for you right there. Well, thank you for joining me, hunters. Have an absolutely amazing weekend. I'll see you next time.
You're a trap, don't seem to mind it. You attract me. I'm a mouse, you're a cat, I don't seem to mind it. soft and furry. Oh, and just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Just when you think you're safe, snap. I come back. You don't seem to mind it, but I'm a fool. Broke my back. You don't seem to mind it, 'cause you're so cool. And just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Ooh. And just when you think you're safe, snap. Turns